All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of the Growth Blueprint Podcast. This is a podcast for ambitious construction entrepreneurs looking to scale up their business. My name's Joe McEvoy. I'm here with my co-host, Matt Rahn. Matt, give us a little introduction on yourself, man.
So I'm Matt Rahn, president of the Rahn Companies. We're an exterior maintenance and site work service provider. We're a 7-figure business, and we're happy to just surpass 10 years in business. So we're going to talk a little bit about my journey and my experience, how I went from a laborer to growing and branding our business.
Nice, cool. And I'm Joe. I'm one of your co-hosts. I own and operate MTM. We are a staffing and recruitment company that specializes in the construction and remodeling space. I've been in recruitment and talent acquisition in the construction and remodeling space for 12 years. I worked for the country's largest residential home remodeler before going out and, finding my passion, helping companies build their labor forces. So, we got some exciting things coming up for you with the podcast. First episode, me and Matt felt was a pretty important topic because I think it's something we're both pretty passionate about is really, knowing your niche in business. For me, you could, throw a stone and hit a recruitment or a talent acquisition company, but they're all over the place. For me, I found success out of the gate in, being specialized and singularly focused in the construction and remodeling space. Matt, you want to talk a little bit about your kind of niche and, how that's, led to your success?
Yeah, and I think one thing that Joe brings that's value here is he's worked for a large company, like he mentioned. So he has not only that grassroots starting from nothing experience, but he's been there and seen corporate side of things, and he has a good blend of knowledge on both subjects. So speaking about your niche, I know that's sometimes in construction a fancy word, right? Niche, what does that mean? But what is your specialty? What is the service that you provide better than anybody else? And when you are looking to expand and grow, how do you stick to that and not get pulled in a million different directions? You see all these contractors starting off, they have a little bit of success, and now they want to try and add another service or add another market to what they do, and then they overextend themselves and they fail to deliver on the services they promise. So, they almost shoot themselves in the foot by trying to be a jack of all trades.
Well, it's hard, right? Especially, when you're starting a new business, you don't want to turn down business.
Right.
You're like, every dollar counts. So it's like, when I started the recruitment company, we were focused in the construction remodeling space, but it's like, if I have a client, and I've had them come to me that aren't in that space, that are like, hey, can you, I had an accountant be like, I need a bookkeeper, or we had a restaurant group that's like, I need servers. And I'm like, grabbing up everything.
Anybody if you can pay.
Yeah, right. And that's where it was. And, it was good in the beginning, but I wasn't passionate about it. Right. So, and if you're not passionate about what you're doing and in your niche, you're going to ultimately fail. I mean, did we fill roles for our clients? Yes. Were they happy with the hires that we got them? Yes. Did we fail? Yes. And I say we failed because that's not why I started the company, right? It's not why I got into the business. I was passionate about the construction and remodeling space, and I didn't feel fulfilled by the type of roles that I was staffing and recruiting for because I was chasing money over my passion or my niche.
Not only that, I think right as you start to grow and you start to find out what works and doesn't work, like that was great in the beginning because maybe you wanted revenue or whatever. But now you would say staffing those roles doesn't pay the multiple that staffing our core services pays to us. And in turn, that's maybe not the best use of our time. So we want to fix something that we know is the best use of our time and put our effort into that.
I've been pretty introspective on it, but now even sitting here talking with you about it, the more I think about it, every second I was spent staffing for a company not in my niche was time spent away from finding business in my niche, right? So we'll use a restaurant group or use the accountant or whoever it is, not in the construction or remodeling space. Like I spent hours staffing for those roles. And those hours are times I can't get back. And it could have really helped me build and scale my business. It held me back. Financially, it helped, of course, but it held me back. And I think, that's the thing probably a lot of people struggle with is, do you chase your passion or do you chase the money? And what I would say is, I think if you chase your passion relentlessly, the money will follow. It may take a little bit more time to do it, but it's better for you in the long run.
Yeah, if you want to have a passion or something like that, right, you need to spend time perfecting your craft. You need to spend time really getting good at it. And then once you are good at it, you need to continue to learn. Technology is very heavy in construction now. It's constantly changing. So whatever area it is that you pick that you feel you're passionate about or you're best at, you need to be on top of your game every day, staying up to date on what's going on in that, and maybe not being distracted by the next, big thing. I know a lot of entrepreneurs have ADD or suffer what might feel like ADD, shiny objects syndrome. And you really need to be, making sure you have an eye on your core strengths and you're really executing them on a daily basis.
And that's a good point, right? There's there's that concept of jack of all trades, master of none.
Right.
Right. It's funny. It's as cliche as that phrase is, it's such a powerful statement, especially when you're trying to grow your business. Because where we found success as a recruitment company is because we are specialized, because our background and everything that we do is in that space. So that when clients are engaging with us or are interested, 10 times out of 10, we win that business because that's our area of specialty, because we have a long-standing background in it, because we have measurable success in that space. We've all been there, right? You engage with somebody for yourself. Maybe you're looking to get your lawn done, or you're looking to get this done, and you're like, hey, can you do this? And they're like, yeah, I do that. And it's like, well, can you do that? And it's like, yeah, I do. It's like, I do everything. It's like, well, do you do anything really well? I'm always
Right.
skeptical of the business owner that is like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, no problem. We do that, no problem. I can do that. I can do this. I can do that. It's like, do you do any of it well though?
Especially when you're somebody that's around construction, you understand the intricacies of construction and the things that could go wrong or the different processes. So when you hear somebody that says, yeah, like you said, yeah, I can do everything well, it's like, wow, this guy must really have some good systems in place.
Yeah. How about the concept of learning to say no?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one. I know that's popular in personal development, social media posts now. Everybody wants to talk about the power of saying no. I think that's super important, right? Once you start to have a little bit of success or you start to put your name out there, then people want to latch on to that and they want to come to you with their best idea, right? You see it on Shark Tank. People are so hype and think their idea is the greatest idea ever, and then they get shot down. So you kind of have to have your own regulator, your own barometer there. When you start to have a little bit of success, people want to latch onto that, and they want you to make their idea successful.
Well, and then not only that, it's what about learning to say no to business?
There's definitely such thing as a bad customer.
Can you tell me a time where you probably should have said no and you didn't?
I know, you get into these situations where you want to do somebody a favor, maybe, right? And they're like, can you help me out? And you're like, well, that's not really what we do. And it's going to take a bunch of effort, but I want to try and help them out. I don't want to tell them no. So yeah, I'll say it.
Yeah.
And then you get involved in something and, you thought it was going to be a little bit of a pain in the neck, and it becomes a big pain in the neck now. And, you're taking time away from other things. And I think that's an important thing to realize too. Like we said in the beginning, whatever you're giving your attention to is taking your time away from something else.
Well, that's what it is. When I was starting the business, one of our first clients came on, and I would say it's not in the space, but it's not out of the space. It's adjacent to the space. And I'm not going to say who the client is because God forbid they might be listening to this podcast. But I was kind of blinded. I was a new business owner. I'm like, I could really use this money right now and it would be really good. And then what I'm realizing now is currently in the state that I'm sitting in right now, that client that I took on, although still turning a profit for the business, is I'm actually losing revenue because I have a recruiter tied into an account that where that recruiter or even my time could be better spent somewhere else and being more profitable there because we could be more in our niche, and having a lot more success than what we're having with the current client. And again, we're having success, but the success could always be better if we were specifically focused on what we were doing. And it's just taking up a lot of time and energy.
Yeah, anytime you do something new, right, there's a startup cost associated with that. So whether you're moving into a new market, new customer type, there's always going to be time invested in just getting up to speed and doing things a little bit differently to work within that industry. And the value of not only your time, but missed opportunity is something that a lot of people, especially in the beginning, overlook in their business. And they don't think about what's this costing me down the road, or what else could I be doing right now that might be bringing more value. We only have so much time in the day, and really specialize in where you want to focus your time is key to being successful.
So here I would say, so that, we talked a lot about the importance of, having a niche, why it's valuable, how it can bring revenue in. But then it's like, we probably have people listening to this podcast that are like, okay, great. But how do I identify my niche?
Mm.
How do I know, what my niche is? There's people out there that are like, okay, you started as a laborer, and you probably did a lot of different things, right? You probably did carpentry work. You probably did concrete work. You probably did this. You probably did that. So there's the concept of, okay, like, how do you zero in on your niche? And, for me, and I can kind of answer this a little bit, is like, one, what do you feel you're really good at? So you might be good at 10 things, but let's get that down to maybe 3, and let's start working with those 3, right? And one of the big things is, like, we kind of talked about the slides, like market research. What does the market dictate for your segment of the industry, right? So you might be good at like 5 things. You're like, okay, let me focus on 5 things. But then you start doing market research, and you're like, well, there's 10 direct competitors in my 10-mile radius that do exactly what I do. So maybe that's not the best one. Like, for me, it's like focusing strictly on construction. Before I did at my previous company, Power Home Remodeling Group, I staffed for everything: sales, marketing, technology, accounting and finance, legal, executive, all of it. So I could have really picked any of those avenues to go into. But then when I started doing the research on other, recruitment agencies in the area, well, there's big recruitment companies. But when I was looking for companies that specialize in, it was like, there was none. And I was like, holy shit. Like,
Opportunity.
I think there's a huge opportunity cost here. So, obviously you're, like I said, you had to have a background on all of these things. And you even probably started your business doing multiple things and then have narrowed it down to one. Why?
I think, like I said, it's important. You want to be the best in your space. You want to stay on top of what you're doing. You don't want to spread yourself too thin and be in a position where you can't deliver on your promises.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, marketing and branding yourself and putting yourself out there, it's kind of important to know, like, what is it, the message we want to deliver? What's our target audience look like? Who are the people that we can really serve the best? Sometimes they say, right, you're better off fishing with the right bait than a large net.
Yeah.
So you want to be
Right.
putting the right message to the right people out there, and not just spending marketing dollars, just putting your name out there to people you may not be relevant to.
Yeah. I mean, that's big. I mean, it's like kind of what we were talking about earlier. It's like when you're starting a business, it's like you don't want to turn anything down. Everybody is a potential client, but then it's like, okay, but now you have to start marketing potentially, or just defining who your target audience is. And it's like you said, you can't, the right bait is sometimes better than a wide net.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times people get, very caught up in that, where it's like, okay, I start a new business. I need to bring dollars in, whoever I can, let me just go to whoever's willing to take me on. I'll do whatever. And it's like, well, no, define your target audience, target them. And that's what you see. It's like, again, I could recruit for anyone. I could literally go on to LinkedIn to put in business owners of every company in the world and just start messaging them one by one. But it's too broad. and it's not specific enough and it's not targeted enough, where now when I'm targeting bringing in clients, we're solely focused on owners of construction and remodeling companies, within even a certain demographic in there, right? Like our sweet spot and the companies that we target are doing anywhere from $2 to $100 million a year in revenue. But really we find ourselves in the 2 to kind of $50-60 million a year revenue, where, we don't see a lot of success. There's plenty of, construction companies doing 100 million plus. But that's not where I feel we bring the most value.
Yeah, well, I think that being able to identify your niche, right, too, you're in that space more. You're talking to people in the construction industry more. You're around people in the construction industry more. So naturally, it allows you, when you do staff for that role, to be able to move more quickly or find a better quality candidate because you're already talking to people in and around that space that may be relevant.
So talk to me. So, the Rahn companies, 7-figure company, tremendous. I'm sure when you started the business, you were doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
How did you narrow it down, and where did you find your sweet spot, and how did you come to that conclusion?
So I think, our sweet spot is we deliver on service, we deliver on communication. That's what's important to our customers, and that's kind of what we identified. So we kind of try to craft our brand around that. And, a lot of times when we have meetings internally, we talk about that. We're not a site work contractor. We're not an exterior maintenance provider. We're not an asphalt company. We're a service company, and we're here to serve property managers, facility managers, builders, and developers. And, that's what our message is. That's what we're about. And we're very clear on that. And we're able to do it at a high level because we built ourselves to be able to provide that service.
Yeah. But I know, again, how many services does your business offer right now?
I mean, I guess we have a large list within one category.
And what's the one category?
So, exterior services.
Yeah.
So exterior services could be anything from fixing their parking lot, doing their landscape, doing snow removal, power washing. Like, you could really get into all of it. And, there's some companies out there that claim they do all of it and they use subcontractors or they do different things. But us, for an organization, we like to take pride on doing a lot of the work with our own in-house staff and not having just a guy that yesterday cut grass and today he's a concrete guy. Having actually dedicated teams that provide each service, having dedicated staff in the office to communicate to the clients about each type of service that know what's going on. I think that's important. We want to be professionals. We don't want to just be somebody on the phone that sounds like they're trying to figure it out.
Well, that's even a good segue, right? Because I think, one of the things, and obviously specializing and knowing your niche as a business owner, education and being educated on your niche. And again, it's going back to that. Do you want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, or do you want to be a master of one? And, it's so funny. You talk about having an in-house team that is specialized, that is on top. I mean, how important do you find, your like continuous education on your team to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's super important. Not only technology changes, but equipment changes, techniques change. There's a lot of legal changes as well now. I know, we just recently were on a seminar about home improvement contractor licensing and the blanket of people that are going to be involved in that here in New Jersey in the next coming year. And there's a lot of guidelines within the language in that law that requires people to be licensed on the job that nowadays are just considered foremen or laborers. There is no real designation for them. Every company operates a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But these people would be required to carry an actual identification license from the state. And with that, they would have to participate in continuing education classes throughout the year to keep that license up to date. So that's definitely a big change that's coming to the industry.
Yeah. And again, that's when you're meeting with clients, being the most educated, right? Because again, you could be very niche. You could be very specialized in your space. And there could still be competition. Like there's like, even for what I do, there isn't a ton of competition, but I still have competition. So what separates me from them, other recruitment and staffing companies that are in my space is education. Am I as up to date on what's going on in the industry, and how that affects the hiring needs of their business and the staffing needs of their business. And, the FTC just passed a massive law based around the elimination of like non-competes. And that's big for the industry and that's big for the space. And first thing I did, and then I went right down my client list, called every single person or texted every single owner of all of my clients, said, hey, did you see this news article? And it's funny because then it opens up a free-for-all for business for me, because they're like, oh, yeah, go get that person. Go get this person for me. Go target that company, because they were scared to do it before. I can't tell you how many times we staff for a client and then a letter comes from that company, cease and desist.
Right.
Stop taking our people. If we see it again, we're going to take legal action. Two, like, think about the education seminars that you're going to. There's a ton of education seminars out there. Me and Matt are both heavily involved in the Builders League of South Jersey. Shameless plug. If you're listening to this podcast and you're a construction owner, get involved. With your local Builders League. But there's tons of leagues. Where we're at, there's a South Jersey Chamber of Commerce. There's the Builders League of South Jersey. What else is there? What are some of the other B&I groups that are out there existing? There's a million.
There's a million groups. You could spend all day just going to these groups. So, that's why it's important to specialize.
Yeah.
And I think it, important when you pick your niche or you pick what you're specializing in, that you understand the people that not only are in that niche that you're competing to, but that complement that too. And that's where you can start to build referral partners or start to really figure out who is my target audience or who could best benefit from my service. When you're all over the place and doing all different things, it's hard to really take the time to look at that and see, all right, where does it make sense to target my efforts?
I get, since I became like a networking just maniac. Like I was going to every networking event, but then again, it's like what you said. I was like, I found myself, being burnt out and not wanting to go to networking events anymore, because slowly over time, I just found myself not having success at the events or doing things. So then I really narrowed it down to, again, networking events that were going to surround me with people that kind of fed my passion in the construction modeling space. So if I get invited to a networking event and I don't, and you're not going to be there, or any of the guys from our local kind of construction community aren't going to be there, I almost have no interest in going, because, it's not feeding my passion. It's not feeding my business. And that doesn't mean that other networking events are bad. And that, it's just like, why waste my time?
Yeah, it's hard. I think, sometimes there's opportunity to be found, and, you never know who you're going to meet or what opportunities are going to come. But when you have limited time as a resource, I think you do want to focus that on the groups that are going to feed your time. And like you said, when you're starting out, you want to network a lot and get your name out there, but you also have to run the business, especially in the beginning when you probably don't have a big budget for additional staff, or you're trying to figure out process, procedure. Like, you need to be involved in the day-to-day operation of the business. You can't just be at every networking event. I know that's a big thing with realtors, right? They're like, how many realtors actually do work compared to how many just go to networking events? And that's something that's a challenge in the beginning, and you need to figure out that balance.
Well, and again, I think staying true to the focus of your business and just putting all your efforts, because again, it's very easily to get distracted by the shinier penny or the thing that doesn't fit the needs of the business. And I'm telling you, I've done it, and I'm still kind of even battling with it with myself right now. Right. It's like hard that when something good comes along, that's not my space, to say, nah, I can't do that. Right. But I can tell you right now from experience, every time I've done that, looking back, I wish I would have just said no.
Yeah, that's true. So how do you think we can give advice to people listening today? Like, how do you identify that? Or maybe they're just getting started. Like, what are the things that you pay attention to?
So here's what I say, even in just kind of summing this up, right? It's one, sit down and really identify your strengths and your niche. Two is going to be do the market research. Make sure there's a need for what you want to do.
Right.
Because again, one of the worst things you can do is you can identify your area of expertise and then you go out and you start marketing for it. You start trying to do business development. You start going to networking events, and you're marketing a product or a service that there's no need for. I've had guys like that come up to me at events,
Right.
and they start talking to me about their product, and I can't help but in my mind be like, I think you need to go back to the drawing board. Like, I just don't think there's a market for it. And then it's, okay, who's your target audience? Identify them, find out where they are, seek them out, and then continue just to educate yourself on your specialty moving forward so you can really be the expert in your space. I promise you, more than price, more than anything else, being the most knowledgeable and the best at what you do will lead to success.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, not only be educated about your space, but be educated about that target client base that you identify, right? So we work with property managers, facility managers. So we want to understand, like, what's their pain points, what are their needs? Not only do we understand how to fix their parking lot the right way or fix their concrete in a technical fashion, but what is it that's important to them, whether it's budgeting, safety, whatever their needs might be, so that we can really help solve a problem and not just tell them 35 important tips about how asphalt works that they might not
Right.
be interested in.
Yeah. So what's coming up? What's next, Matt? What do we have? Podcast 1, we're doing it, and I don't want to stop. I had a great time today. So what can our listeners expect moving forward? What do we have coming up for episode 2, episode 3, episode 4? What can the people expect?
So really, like we talked about, in our business, we're here to provide service. The same thing with this podcast. Like, we want to share our expertise, share some of our knowledge, share some of the things we did wrong to try and help other people, try and gain traction. And we have a good list of upcoming topics here to help with that. So we're looking at talking about some scaling strategies, about how to build a high performance team, financial management, and how to really understand your books and how to use your numbers as, an info source to make decisions within your business. And then, of course, marketing and branding is always important, and
That's gonna be the
sometimes
big one.
is an afterthought.
That's going to be the big one. Marketing
Online
and branding.
reputation, all
Yeah.
those things are very relevant nowadays.
Yep. Well, Matt, I appreciate you going on this journey with me. Thanks
Joe.
for
I'm looking forward to it.
taking the time today, guys, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the next podcast.
Yeah, if everyone could follow the show on social media, you could follow us as well. You can follow Joe's company and resources, or you can follow the Rahn companies on social media. Connect with us on LinkedIn, and we look forward to hearing from you.